Welcome to Nomadic Tents. If you're watching this video, you have either bought a stretch tent from us or you are participating in one of the tent training courses. Either way, you are ready to embark on a new and exciting career in the stretch tent industry. Remember, safety first. There are no shortcuts, and the safety of the people under the stretch tent needs to be considered at all times. These steps will focus on how best to care for your tent, as the longer its lifespan, the greater your return on the investment. So let's get started. In order to rig your tent, you will need the following rigging equipment: 1.2 meter steel pegs with collars, various sized aluminum upright poles engineering grade 50 millimeter diameter, with a minimal 2 millimeter wall thickness ranging from 2 meters to 4 meters, with M10 eye bolts on one end, 50 meters of 5 millimeter nylon rope with 500 kgs braking strain, carabiner and rope rigging sets, sturdy metal pole bases, electrical side cutters, 15-pound hammer with steel shaft, your tent, and a waterproof ground sheet large enough to protect your tent from contacting the ground while unfolding before the installation. The following safety equipment is suggested: safety boots with steel toe caps, clear safety goggles, leather gloves, and hard hats if necessary or required by law. Site. Identify the area where the tent is to be put up. It is very important to make the following observations. 1. Check to see if the ground is firm enough to restrain the anchor pegs sufficiently without them pulling out. 2. Carefully check the site layout for underground water pipes and electric cables. Identify the potential danger areas and mark them clearly to avoid damages when erecting the tent. 3. Decide on the tent configuration prior to the erection to avoid having to move the structure later on. Once the site has been identified and the danger areas are visibly marked, take the clean ground sheet out of the bag and spread it on the ground. Take the tent out of the bag and unfold it onto the ground sheet. Always make sure the tent does not make contact with the ground surface to avoid it getting soiled. Start the rigging procedure. 1. Attach a 2-meter rope with a carabiner to each corner lug attachment of the tent. 2. Draw an imaginary line over the tent from the one corner to the diagonally opposite corner. 3. Then use this imaginary line and measure a further 2 meters away from the corner attachment lug and knock a 1.2 meter stake into the ground. 4. Strike a stake in at an approximately 70-degree angle so that 80% of the stake penetrates the ground. 5. Attach the stake to the corner lug of the tent. 6. Repeat this process for the remaining 3 corners. 7. Tension the tent slightly using the 4 anchor ropes and make sure that it is flat on the ground. Note: do not over-tension the tent. If the tent is over-tensioned and the sides are too tight, you will not get enough height to insert the upright poles, and the tent will become impossible to lift. Prior to lifting the tent, ensure that the aluminum pole caps are fitted with clean white rubber caps on the top end. Brown rubber caps are fitted to the base of the pole and used as ground stompers at the bottom of the pole. The white rubber tops may only be used for the top end, for supporting the tent, and the brown rubber caps for the ground. 8. Lift one of the tent sides up off the ground and insert a rubber-capped 2-meter aluminum pole. 9. Moving inwards, insert 3 or 4 smaller poles in the same way so that the tent is lifted off the ground entirely and is suspended in the air. The tent should be standing now and secured by the 4 corner anchor points. Attaching rigging sets. Unfold the carabiner rope rigging sets and attach them to the tent lug attachments. Once the rigging sets have been strategically secured to the lugs of the tent, use a spare carabiner to attach the pole through the eye bolt to the tent lug attachment. Standing inside under the tent, push the outrigger pole upwards and outwards from inside the tent and take up the slack. Do not use excessive force. Then, attach a rope to the steel ring hanging at the end of the carabiner rigging set. Measure approximately 1 meter and insert a stake. Tie off the rope to the stake. Once secured, push the pole further outwards and absorb the slack. Then, retension the rope firmly and make sure the pole is positioned at an angle and the base is firmly embedded. Note: all poles must be tensioned securely. Outrigger poles always to be angled correctly, never upright. Repeat this process for all the remaining sides. Use 2 outrigger poles for the long side of the tent and 1 pole for each of the shorter sides. Remove the ground sheet. 10. Once the tent is suspended, insert a large king pole in the center of the tent and place them. 13. The base of the king pole must then be inserted into a large steel base plate pole holder. Please note that due to excessive pressure, you will need 2 to 3 people to lift the pole. Be very careful that your hands, fingers, and spine are not injured during this process. 14. Once the base plate has been positioned correctly, knock a 1.2 meter stake into the base plate's hole to secure the plate holder firmly to the ground. After this process, the tent will now be adequately secured and tensioned. To further secure the tent in case of adverse weather, make use of cargo straps. Throw the straps over the top side of the tent, following the valleys, and cross them over and secure the ends. Secure the straps with stakes and ratchet the slack from the cargo straps, while applying tension and light pressure to prevent the tent from lifting. Do not over-tension the straps on the tent. Always allow for play. Finishing touches. Cover all exposed stakes with rubber stake end covers. This makes them more visible and will prevent pedestrian injuries. All frayed rope ends must be cut short with a sharp side cutter to prevent any loosening during the event, and to ensure pedestrians do not trip over the trailing rope ends. Safety. The following safety points must be noted. 1. The corner lug attachments must be secure in all weather conditions. If the ground is not suitably firm, sew additional anchor ground stakes and tie separately to adjacent lug attachments on each corner. 2. Always ensure that the large king poles in the center of the tent and the other support poles are positioned in such a way that the maximum support is provided to the canopy. 3. A rule of thumb for pole spacing between poles must always be at least 5 meters apart. 4. Carefully check that enough roof pitch is allowed to ensure that water is able to run off to prevent damming and pooling of rainwater. 5. Note, if rainwater accumulates and pools on the roof, the weight of the water can cause the tent to collapse. 6. All the large king poles and support poles must be placed in base plates securely pegged into the ground to prevent them from falling over in adverse weather, which will prevent injuries and damage to persons or property. 7. Check that all upright support poles are vertically perfect and not kinked or bent. Any weakness in poles can compromise the pole strength. Discard bent or dented poles. 8. Tents with 2 or more king poles must be secured by means of cargo straps placed over the tent and secured on the sides with stakes. This is to prevent the tent from lifting during windy conditions. 9. All the stakes must be covered with rubber covers to prevent injuries to pedestrians and to make them more visible. 1. Remove the ratchet straps. 2. Remove the center king poles first. 3. Spread the ground sheet under the tent while removing the rest of the upright support poles in preparation for collapsing the tent. 4. Once the upright poles have been removed, start removing the outrigger poles and detach them from the tent by undoing the carabiners. 6. Loosen and remove all corner lugs. Carefully fold the tent and bag in a clean inner tent bag. Place the inner bag into the outer bag and store in a dust-free environment. 7. Make sure that the ground sheet is packed away correctly with the top side, the clean side, folded together. This will ensure that the ground sheet remains clean for the next time it is required. Remember, dirty ground sheets will soil your tent. The remaining stakes are then removed from the ground by means of a sledgehammer or a peg puller. Maintenance. 1. Ensure tents are cared for at all times. 2. Always use a clean ground sheet. Ensure the tent ground sheet is clean and dry while in use. 3. During tent setup and breakdown, follow the correct procedures. Do not walk on the tent. Ensure workers' hands are clean at all times and rubber pole caps are kept clean. 4. Avoid any ink contamination, as this will absorb into the tent fabric and stain the tent. 5. Do not store tents when they are wet for longer than 3 days. 6. Tents must be washed and cleaned regularly, at least once a quarter, especially tents that are exposed to excessive pollution, fallout, debris, near extractor fans, etc. 7. The use of abrasive chemicals or cleaning materials containing solvents should be avoided at all times. Use a non-solvent cleaning agent to clean the tent. Neutral pH balance cleaning soaping agents are preferable. 8. All tents must be securely rigged and installed. All fixtures and riggings are to be secured and regularly checked and maintained. 9. Avoid placing poles directly next to the seam, rather in the middle of the panel, always with a clean rubber top. 10. Avoid excessive loading on any one point of the tent. 11. Do not use overly aggressive cleaning techniques, as this might damage the coating. Thank you for taking the time to watch our DVD. During this short instruction, we've demonstrated the basics of erecting a stretch tent safely and securely. These basic principles apply exponentially for larger setups involving numerous tents. But always remember that no matter how big the setup is or how many tents you need to erect, always stick to the basics. With time and experience, you will become more confident and will soon discover rigging techniques that are better suited for your location and operational abilities. Welcome to the world of stretch tents. We wish you all luck and success.